Hi everyone, I'm Xuan. So as what Joyce has briefly introduced, I am from Singapore International Foundation, where we look at inspiring, equipping, and enabling youth to start or scale their social enterprises. Yeah, so that is one of the few programs that we run. And for this area that I look at, we do this through our range of programs that will provide support to social entrepreneurs. So we provide mentorship, capacity building, pitching, and grants. So aside from the Singapore International Foundation, I also am a co-founder of an impact venture, which is called Sonder Social. So at Sonder Social, we advocate for social procurement, meaning we are asking for corporates and shoppers to buy from enterprises and communities that actually will drive social impact and missions in the Asia Pacific markets. Yeah, so I thought it'd be very interesting to share with everyone what I have learned and any of my experience as well to kind of help you as you're working on your impact venture. Yeah, so that's a little quick brief on myself.
Okay, thank you, Swen. Okay, Jenny's here. Okay, so guys, this afternoon we will look upon the impact ventures, developing an impact ventures. So if you guys had something to do with this uh, impact and or social startup, so you have to listen and then ask Sven about this topics because if you look at Sven's LinkedIn, it's impressive, guys. So
No, not really, Sito. But
so
thank you.
please, we will give you the time to give you your material first. Please, Sven.
Yeah, thank you, Sito. So maybe if I
I
would
think
just
I
start
lost
off,
the snow and I'm back.
I think I can share about what you should consider when
Mhm.
you're developing an impact venture. Because I was told that all of you are actually essentially looking at social outcomes, right? I'm hearing future of work. I'm listening on things like women empowerment and so on and so forth. So when you're developing a venture like that, there are a few things that you need to consider. So very firstly, it would be sustainability. Sustainability here is not just about your, financial model, but also viability of your business model to execute your financial outcomes. Yeah, so this would include the customers you will have, the people you will hire, the margins of your P&L so that you meet your bottom line of profits and ensure that your venture can actually continue. So that is very important for all of you here. And then secondly, you have to consider about resources. Yeah. So resources comes in varied forms. So if I were to just simplify it, you can look at the people, space, and tools. So you for people, you can think about who are the ones that's executing your business activities, who can provide the capital for your venture. So think in that area. And then for space, you can think about any physical or virtual spaces that you require for your venture. Yeah, so this is very important because if you do need a space to do your logistics, then you have to start looking for it. Otherwise, you have to look for other ways to attain physical space. If not, you are looking at more virtual, right? So then you can think about your website. Is it an app? What are the things you require to make this happen? And then lastly, I mentioned about tools. So tools can be systems, it can be applications, platforms, softwares. So it can be as simple as using things like Telegram. I think you're all familiar with Telegram. Or you can use simple tools like Excel to just track your P&L. So think about the tools that you need to ensure your operations are running and ensure business performance. And because you are all impact ventures, so aside from sustainability and resources, it's also very important to consider the social outcomes of your work.
Mhm.
So your business is not just looking at economic returns, you're considering what we usually call a triple bottom line approach. So you need to think about the social mission of a venture and how you can get there. So a lot of impact enterprises, like even myself, I would use a tool called theory of change. So theory of change is a way for you to work backwards. So you start with your long-term goals. What do you want to do? What is the final outcome you want? And then you map backwards to identify the intermediate and the early changes and activities you need to incorporate to ensure you will meet your long-term social goal. Yeah. And it's very important. Later on, I can share if you would like to know, but because without understanding the actual problems, you're going to create a solution that is not going to be needed in the community you are looking at addressing. And the problem is actually going to be what we call a white elephant. So it's very expensive and then it actually doesn't serve a purpose. Yeah. So
I
this
see.
is a little bit of insight into what to consider when you're building an impact venture.
Mhm. Okay, I myself have a question, Swen. So I talk a lot with some of these impact startups in Indonesia. So the one thing that I cannot, uh, the question that I cannot answer it is this. Sometimes they ask me about how can an impact ventures like us, impact startups like us, earn money. So I just thought, oh yeah, yeah, you have to sell something and maybe you can do some CSR something, but that's it. I only don't know that, but maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a very good question because a lot of times people are confusing the idea of nonprofit
Yeah.
with an impact venture. And then ultimately, there's another group that's called the more commercial venture, right?
Mhm.
So I think it would be nice to share what would be the difference. Yeah. So I
Mm,
would like to think that all startups are now more responsible. So when you're a responsible startup, you will look at profits, right? So that you can sustain your venture. But then you will also try and have some social and environmental measurements in place so that you know it's not just the finance alone, what other impact you might have on your environment and the people around your work. Yeah. So without looking into that social and environmental measurements, it means that your work is not wholesome because you're not looking at the whole picture and you cannot account for the full cost of doing that business.
mhm,
But for impact venture, it's very different because impact venture it's their intention to address a social need. Yeah. So then, how do you use this intention and try to create a business out of it so that you can complement the normal way of
yeah.
selling a service and product. Yeah. So for example, right, just imagine a retailer, they want to maximize profit margin. And what they do is they just sell products and they just get as much earnings as they can per product and service. But then for a retailer that's looking at social impact, for example, they are solving food waste or they are trying to create employment opportunities for the differently abled, by employing them as a staff. Well, essentially, you're still running a business, but right now you have a lot more thought into your business because you're trying to solve some social needs in the community. Yeah. But at the same time, you also make sure that you are financially sustainable because you
Mhm,
have a revenue model in place. That means you are still selling your products, you're still earning money for it, and then the profit that you bring in, it will ensure that you can still pay for your staff, it can pay for your overheads and your operations to continue. So I think a lot of times people confuse impact venture with nonprofit, thinking, how can you make money? But nonprofits work differently because nonprofits, you are a charity, you
mm.
go out there looking for donations. Yeah, you are not really selling a service and product commercially. You're just looking for donations to run certain programs. Yeah, so I think, I think that's a very good question, Sito.
Yeah, I get that a lot, you know. So yeah, so if you explain it that way, it can it become something that is a gimmick? to a company that is
I understand what you mean. So it's a bit like what we usually call greenwashing, right? So you say that, oh, I have this social outcomes, so just support me because I am a responsible startup. Yeah. But then it also comes back to your social intentions. So a lot of times, impact enterprises, they come with a problem first, and that problem is not something they just within one day they think of it. They actually go down to understand the community. They do their research. They go in and talk to, let's say, if you're working in an agricultural field,
Yeah.
you go in and speak to your farmers. You understand the families that's related to the farmers. You understand the supply chain, and then you then try and understand what are some gaps that's not filled when you speak to them. Yeah, and from these problems that you have found out, you then try to come up with a solution that is then validated by your community. Yeah. So then that will make their impact enterprise what we call a really like a true social enterprise, because then you're not trying to just gain profit, right? Just coming out with an idea just to gain profit and say that I have a social impact embedded in it. So that is a difference. So I wouldn't say it's like a gimmick, because very naturally customers can see through gimmicks.
Yep.
They can tell. They can tell when you're just faking it. You're not sincere, and over time, your supporters will stop. Your customers will stop, and they'll switch to another brand. So if you are very true with your intentions, if you are really looking at helping, let's say, people with disabilities in hiring process, then very naturally, the way you run your operations, you cater to your beneficiaries. Go find a way to work around their challenges, and from there your customers can see it, and they will know that it's not what we usually people will try to say greenwashing. Yeah.
Greenwashing. Yeah. Right. Okay. Maybe Jenny, do you have something to ask?
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, just a question, like from your experience, what are some common pitfalls made by entrepreneurs developing startups in the sustainability or social impact space?
I think that's a very good question. I think a lot of pitfalls comes a lot of times impact enterprises, they don't succeed. There are two. I would generalize. I think there are two. One is their model is not really for a business. They have not thought it out well. So in the end, they cannot sustain their operations. So they prioritize too much on social outcomes. And in the end, they don't give more thought to their service and product that is sellable. So then it becomes a challenge to continue. So it becomes a pitfall. Then the other set is when you don't think enough for your beneficiary. So this time around, you're thinking too much on your commercial end. You're not thinking about the beneficiary. So you don't do your proper research. You don't understand what actually is needed. So when you create a solution with your enterprise, but the problem doesn't exist, in the end it will fail because people don't need your solution. Yeah. So I think there is a very classic example. I don't know if everyone here heard of this impact enterprise called Playpumps. Yeah, so Playpump is a very interesting case study that a lot of impact ventures will look at. So it's a very simple concept by this enterprise in South Africa. They thought that communities in Africa, they don't have access to water, right? So how about building a pump that can be attached to a playground? And then when children play in this playground, the water will be pumped to the village. So people were like, wow, it's a very great idea because it's so simple, right? You get children to play, and then while they're playing in this merry-go-round playground structure, the water will be pumped to the village. Yeah. So people were so into the idea, and this enterprise also thought about the commercial side. Their water tanks will be advertisement space to corporates. So they will sell advertisement spaces to the corporates, and therefore they have their revenue channel. However, when they started doing this, they realized that it essentially became a failure because people like children wanted to play at the playground, but this merry-go-round device actually requires a lot of force. It's not like your usual merry-go-round. When you push, the inertia will allow it to spin, right? But this is a pump. So the children are essentially pushing with force at this merry-go-round. So over time, they got very tired. They don't want to play with it anymore.
So it's like an
And
exercise,
in
yeah.
the end, the village, yes. And then some villagers even have to try and pay children to spin the merry-go-round.
Wow.
Yeah, because it becomes a chore. Like it's no longer about playing. It's like work. And
Mhm.
it's expensive to maintain. So before they implement play pumps, these villagers used to have hand pumps. So your traditional using hand to pump the water out. But after play pumps came in, they took away the hand pumps. And villagers actually found the hand pumps easier to use because you don't need to get children to go and push the merry-go-round and then wait for the water to come in. It's just a very quick and efficient way of using hand pumping action to get water. So after a few years, a lot of money went into it to create the pumps, but maintenance was difficult also. It wasn't cheap to maintain a device like this, a merry-go-round, and then pumping water to your storage tank. So it became so expensive to maintain that over time, the villagers stopped using it. So essentially, at the start, everybody was thinking this is a brilliant idea, but you never go down and consult with your villagers, with the children. Do they like to use this? You didn't have an MVP to play around to get an understanding of whether they are open to the idea. You just implement it. So in the end, it became a pitfall. Like nobody wanted to use it anymore, so it wasn't useful. So I think there are two ways. There can be pitfalls. It's either you focus so much on social, you neglect your profits, so you cannot sustain, or you focus so much on creating a solution that does not benefit the community at all, and then it will fail because there's no one that will need to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with the second one, yeah, because sometimes we don't do enough research for this. It's like gut feeling. Okay, I'm going to do this with my gut feeling.
Yeah, correct. But I know it's very normal because in the lean startup space, we always have to try and come up with an idea fast, right? And then later on, we go and validate, we go and do our research, ask people to see whether it's a viable option. And I think it's important to do that research. Even if you come up with a solution first, go and do your research after. Keep pivoting and keep iterating because when I launched my own social enterprise, we also did that method because we are very lean. We come up with a solution with a bare understanding of the needs and then keep going back and check in on the needs so you can further build on your case. Over time, you'll come up with a solution that's actually meeting various stakeholders and that will help your impact venture.
Okay, I think we have a question here.
Okay.
Yeah, someone raised a hand. Can you step up? Okay, go to the blue. Yes.
I love this. I love this platform.
Hi.
Yes, please.
Hi. Hi, Amber.
Hi, yeah, I'm Amber. I'm 18. I'm actually currently in Singapore, but I'm from South Africa.
Wow.
And our idea is our team is working on a remote workers pocket assistant. So it helps them meet all of their needs, remote, like working remotely. And this idea came from back in South Africa. We have this thing called load shedding, which is basically scheduled power outages and not a lot of people had generators for electricity and Wi-Fi to do their remote working, which was so essential because of COVID. And obviously, with a remote working platform, we also want to connect remote workers with companies who can outsource their work. So hopefully, the end goal is increasing job opportunities and just making remote workers' lives easier. I wanted to ask if you see this as enough of a social impact and if it's financially feasible or maintainable in the future.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks for sharing about your idea and work. I think it's okay. So personal opinion is whenever you want to think about whether your business is addressing a social need, it would be good to look for something called the theory of change. So I'll recommend everyone who's looking at venture businesses to go and Google up on something called theory of change. So theory of change will ask you to look at what is the long-term social impact outcome you're looking at. So Amber, maybe this is something you have to think about. What is the eventual goal that you want to achieve that's related to social or environmental? And then afterwards, you can work backwards to achieving these goals. So for your idea, I would definitely say that it is an impact venture because you're looking at a group that usually would have been disadvantaged based on their circumstances in finding jobs and in not getting access to the information they need. And if you see that there's a gap there, then of course you are addressing a need by the community. Yeah. And I think you have another question on, was it?
Yeah, my main question is, do you think that this would be like financially feasible in the long run?
So financial feasibility is how you manage your profits and your expenses. So I would say actually, I can't think of any businesses that wouldn't be considered sustainable. It's how you do your pricing and the service and products you offer. So you have to check against any market rates out there just to understand how people are charging, whether you can charge it accordingly, or are you going to, if you're going to charge it more, what additional benefits are there for your customers to use your product? Yeah. And then from there, you have to think about your expenses. So are you going to hire people? How would that add to your expenses? Are you using space? So, once you work out that P&L, I'm sure you'll find a way to make it sustainable. Yeah. It might take a few times to just tweak it
Yep.
because you have to, try it out, see if customers will buy into it, gather their feedback, and see whether they are comfortable with the price range. If not, you can always change your service, adjust the cost. Because personally, I have done that as well for my own social enterprise, and we have been running for 4 years. The very first year we were struggling to find ways to make it profitable, and then onwards, once you figure out the mechanics of your work, you will find ways to add services and adjust the pricing to make sure that you remain operational. Yeah.
Okay,
I hope
thank
that
you.
helps.
Yes, it did.
Thank you, Amber. Okay, guys, if you have some question to Suen about impact ventures, just please go on a chat or just wave your hand. We will invite you to the front and everyone can see you. Okay. So maybe our next question, yeah, we will wait for the audience question. I think we want to know about some of the key factors that, okay, this event should be. There's a lot of like Amber that want to do something good, that want to do some impact with their startups. What kind of factors that they should take into consideration, Sven, before they start their impact ventures?
Mm, I think an event like hackathons are amazing because the possibilities are endless. You look for your people and then you look for skills to help kickstart some brainstorming before you come up with an idea. I think I feel like the next steps will be quite crucial as to whether your idea will take off. And most of the time, being an entrepreneur is very lonely. it's a very lonely journey. So I think you have to consider about finding a support system. Yeah. So you have to go out and build your own support system, or you can go and join a support system that's already out there. Yeah. So I feel like Startup Weekend here is also an ecosystem, right? You kind of bring together people who wants to help each other based on their different skills to come up with ideas. And then onwards, once you have already done that, what are the other ecosystem that you can look for to ensure that you can bring your idea forward? Yeah, so I feel like you should look at partnerships. I think partnerships are quite essential because instead of looking at internal resources, it's good to start thinking about external resources. And partnerships can actually help your venture leverage on another, company's solutions or another company's database, so that you can quickly get your customers, or you can quickly figure out the supply chain of your service and product, and then you can dedicate all your other time to areas that you need to be more critical on. Yeah. So for example, right, let's say you're working on a solution that's providing caregiver support to elderly. Yeah, so instead of building your network of the elderly people who will use your service, maybe you can work with hospitals. Yeah, so very quickly you can then complement their needs for caregivers, and then you can also quickly get your customers. And then you can go and figure out where do you find your caregivers to match the demand. Yeah, so I feel like it's important to find the ecosystem of support, and it could be partnerships, it could be community like startup weekend here, or even like accelerators and incubators. You can consider those because they have already organized programs and they already have their own networks of mentors or funders, and you can go through their program to get the resources you require. Yeah. So I think these are two things that you can consider.
Yep. So the first one will be a support system. Yeah. So it will be because yeah, as you said, it's going to be a lonely journey. Yeah. Furthermore, it's social issues that we want to tackle. So yeah, I think the next thing that people will want to know about this strategic partnership that you talk about. Uh, how do you I don't know how to say this, but sometimes that we are just starting out, just starting out, we want to solve some social issues, and then we had to talk to people about this issue, and I don't know how to say this to people, like hey, this is my startup, we want to we want to solve about the agriculture issue with the for the
It's like
farmers.
how you want to convince those people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
It's also
it's
very
quite hard.
scary.
it's quite hard to jumble the words, and then how do you how do you tips and tricks for that?
Tips and tricks. Wow. I think too much pressure on me. Tips and tricks. But I get it. Like strategic partnership is very important because you may not have your full team, or you don't have the money to pay for a full team, and there is only so much you can do by yourself or with your co-founders. You need to make sure you can also explain what you're trying to do with everybody. Yeah. So I would recommend maybe look at an advisory board, or look at getting mentors. So we go back to support system, right? That ecosystem that you built. You can look at getting professionals in your field, one or two, who can give you that research and background in exchange on being your board member. Or you can also look at mentors, so professionals working in that field and advising you maybe 1 or 2 hours per month to just give you the background knowledge you require. And I'm sure when you have a need to pitch your idea, that the mentors and advisory board member will be happy to join the call to just help you. Yeah, because after all, they are supporting you, right? That's the reason why they want to be your mentor. they want to be on your board because they believe in your idea. And with them coming into any meetings that you have where you need that kind of expert knowledge, they can provide you your meeting the person you're meeting with the essential knowledge, so you don't find yourself fumbling, not sure what statistics to provide, and then in the end the person don't trust you anymore because
Yeah.
they don't think you understand your own solution. Yeah, so support system is very important once you start wanting to bring the idea to the next step.
Yep. Hey. Okay. Next, maybe Jenny. Yeah. Got some question, maybe.
Yeah, it's a bit noisy here.
No,
Okay.
I love
What?
that you look like you're in a cafe. I love it.
Yeah, because if I'm at home, then it's also quite noisy. I'll get kidnapped by my parents. So it's better to come outside. Yeah.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, and so what are some key metrics that are often used to measure the success of an impact venture? Can you share a bit?
Okay, this is not an easy question to answer because I feel like there are a lot of measurement tools out there, and different people will adopt it differently. So, from my work at Singapore International Foundation, the tool we use actually is by Impact. So, Impact is a consultancy company in Singapore for social enterprises and nonprofit. And this tool that they have, called Needs Assessment, is what we use to help our cohort of social enterprises measure um, their needs, and also understand where are the gaps and strengths, so that onwards they can then look for the correct mentors or support system to help them. So just very briefly to share with you, the matrix we look at is 6 different key pillars. So we look, well, even then, so we look at talent and leadership. So looking at your own enterprise, who are the people in there? Do they have the skills to do what you want to do? And then we have another pillar that's called social impact and outcomes. So, what is the impact you're looking at? And then you can break it down into all the indicators you want to achieve. We also look at capital. Where can you look for capital, and where is it coming from? Is it from family? Is it from yourself? Is it you're going to fundraise outside? Is it through grants? Or is it more equity based financing? Yeah, so there are 6 key pillars. I think another pillar was about well, I can't recall now. Yeah, let me have a think about it. If it comes to my mind, I will add on to the 6 key pillars.
Okay. So the first one is about talent and leadership. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it important for us newbies in impact world that we have some experience working with social things, or you don't have to?
I feel like a lot of times people start an impact venture, they already have a passion or interest area in why they want to do what they are proposing to do. So, for example, if they are already very familiar with a certain problem, that's why they are going to try and tackle it. Yeah. Otherwise, they will be trying to support somebody else who already
Hmm.
know of the problem, and then they go in and help them. Yeah. So you mentioned about whether they need the talent, the knowledge. I wouldn't say you must, but it helps you. Yeah, because then you don't have to go and start from scratch and try to understand the issue. You already have your own experience, or you have experience of your friends or the people around you, that you can ask and validate from. So when it comes to talent, Sito, were you saying more like whether they like are they developer or things like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just like should we have some experience with social work or something like that, so that people will trust us?
I would say no, because you can always gain that experience after. But I must say, you have to go and have that experience. Yeah. You may not have it now, but you must have that context. Um, it is not only just about credibility, it's also because these problems that you're trying to solve are very complex. It's not something that you read off an article that can make you understand why it's happening and how to just come up with something to help it. It involves a lot of stakeholders, the direct stakeholders that will benefit or not benefit from what you're trying to propose, and it trickles down to their family and other people involved in the whole process. So it's not that simple. But I also say that you can learn, right? Because once you start it up, you have to go and find out about it. You're not going to, stay in your space and, I won't understand this at all. I'll just come up with something for myself. No, you will end up, chancing upon it. You will probably go and find an association, find somebody to ask. So you will build your knowledge after. Yeah, but you definitely have to build the knowledge because we might come back to the play pumps issue. You
Oh
don't know
yeah.
your villagers, you don't know the children, and then you just propose something for them.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
important.
Yep.
But I would say go and consider, incubators, accelerators, if you are ready for it, because they have already come up with that ecosystem for you. But when you are looking at going to a program like that, right, to commit your time, please also check the expectations of the program. There's always like a duration. There's always like the networks that they already have, and the interest that they are looking at catering. So if you are working on agriculture and you go into an accelerator that's looking at something that's more urban space, you're not going to get in. Yeah. So just keep a lookout for different support systems out there. Join them, and as specific as possible. Because imagine you are working on safety and you go into a program about urban safety or planning. They would have already the resources. They can find you the mentors. They can find you the
Yeah.
funders that's already interested in this space, and then it can propel. It can speed up your startup, so you don't have to do everything from scratch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think for my last question, yeah, I think Jenny is stuck there.
No, no, she is moving.
She isn't moving.
No. I am moving, not
Oh.
JPG.
So your picture is not moving. Okay, for my last question, I think that's my first, and then Jenny will have the last question too. Uh, can you tell us, after years of working on impact ventures, can you tell us some of your when you work with a company or a startup that has been memorable to you?
Oh, memorable. I like that.
Impactful, maybe.
um, I have come across so many, and I would say all of them always impress me because the founders actually have the passion to want to do it. And that passion actually is very important because it motivates them. As I said before, right, it's quite a lonely journey when you're enterprising. If you don't have that motivation, it actually makes it even harder for you to want to continue, because you will become disinterested after a time, or you will find a challenge too difficult and you're not willing to put in the time and effort to address it. So that motivation is very important. So a lot of times when I come across impressive teams, right, is that passion. Yeah, that passion to actually do what they want to do. So for instance, well, I have so many, um, but I can speak about one. So there is this impact venture called Hatch in Singapore. So the founder, he actually is very young. Um, but he is very passionate about wanting to help youth who do not have the money or the opportunity to learn about tech skills. So, developing, coding, some disadvantaged youth, they do not have the capability to go through that, or they have never heard about the career outcomes when you go through a tech course. So this founder, he himself also do not really have that knowledge. He doesn't know tech, he doesn't know coding, but he knows of people that can benefit from it. Because of his own experience, he has met youth that actually do not know of this opportunity out there when it comes to tech and coding. But he knows the future of work, and he knows that if youth are equipped with these skills, they can have a better income, have a better standards of living. And so he started this enterprise called Hatch, and he partners with organizations because it's just him and two other founders. They're very lean, so they work with organizations that already have a database of youth that can benefit from these courses. So then they go directly to these organizations and say, do you have anyone that may be interested in these causes? Yeah, so they find out who their customers are going to be. And then because the youth are not going to pay for the course, right? Because they already do not have the access and the financial capability to pay. So then they look for other means. So they look for corporates that have CSR interest to teach tech. But the companies are not going to teach the courses. They have the money. Yeah. So then they pay for services, and then Hatch will carry out the course. They will look for the educators. They will form their own team of trainers to deliver a module. And after the youth go through a module, they get placement in the companies. Yeah. So the companies that provided the course for the youth, they will actually get this youth coming as interns, or later on an actual full-time job. Yeah. So it's actually a great way, to explore options with partnerships, tap into resources you will need to come up with your business idea, and then eventually you will form your own supply chain and your own business activities. Yeah. So that one really impressed me because of how that is not his domain knowledge. He doesn't know tech, he doesn't know coding, but he comes across people that can benefit from it. So he tried to pull ways together to create a whole impact venture to help the youth. Yeah.
Nice. Okay,
Yes.
over to you, Jen. Jen? Okay.
Yeah, great story. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I don't have much question. Any participants that have any question who want to ask Shen?
Yeah, feel free to ask me, and I'm here for you.
Okay. Yeah. Any just the final question from me, and actually I have to go for a short toilet break before I start the next session. So yeah. Any failure story that you want to share that can inspire the participants here? Like, because startup weekend is quite raw idea, and then most of them might fail later on. So we want them to be inspired and learn from failure. So any of the startups that you've gone through before have very inspiring failure story, and then they got success later on.
Okay. I can't think of anything at the moment, but I have to say, all the enterprises that I come across, they have failed one time, many times, and then eventually they succeed. Yeah. And it's very important because these are lessons. Even for myself, before I come up with Sonder Social, that's been running for 4 years, I have tried different ways of trying to create an enterprise, an impact venture. and they will fail. They will start off okay, and then later on, maybe I lose interest, or the customers are not coming, and then it's just not running anymore, and then it naturally just fail. It's very normal. But I feel that all these failures are lessons, because you can learn about what do you do wrong. Is it the way you market your product? There's no need for it, or you don't have the skills and expertise to do it. So then you need to go and change your venture. So I would say that failures are very important. It helps us to understand what to learn in our next enterprise idea. So just keep trying, keep pivoting. Even when you have a successful enterprise, you have to keep up with times. You can't always be serving the same service and product and the same people over time, because there will be competition coming, and then you need to make sure you are sustainable, right? So you have to start pivoting, think about other ways you can add revenue to your venture, and then keep on growing from there. Yeah, so I would say it's always a learning journey.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Shen. Seto, you can continue. I'm gonna leave for a while.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
See you guys.
Bye. Thanks, Jenny.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Someone waving. Brandon, are you trying to ask question, or just waving? Yeah.
Hi, Brendan.
Okay then. I think we have a we the time is up for us, Swen. So do you have any last remarks for the startup weekend?
Last remarks. I just want to say all the best to all the teams here. You're all working hard for the next few hours. I believe your submission is next week, right? Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing. I think it's always exciting to see new ideas come in, because you can be the next unicorn. Who knows? You can be providing the next solution that everyone needs. Yeah. But keep looking for the support system that will help your ideas. And if you want to know more about ecosystems, you want to see whether SIF, Singapore International Foundation, could be a way for you to propel your idea, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, I'll be happy to share networks and knowledge and resources to bring you there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Sito.
you, Swen.